I just read something that is really interesting in the book of Acts. Okay, I have never seen this before. Like, I've read the book of Acts a ton of times. I've never seen this. All right, so Paul and Barnabas, they were out preaching, right? And they came into this town and they were preaching the gospel and performing miracles and all the things. Like, the Lord was using them and doing things, and to the point that these people thought they were gods. They thought that Barnabas was Zeus and Paul was Hermes, right? And so they tore their clothes. It says, when they heard of it, they tore their robes and rushed out into the crowd, because this crowd was about to make sacrifices to them. Like, they thought they were gods and they were about to make sacrifices. And they said, "Men, why are you doing these things? We are also men of the same nature as you and preach the gospel to you. And you should turn from these vain things to a living God who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them." This is Acts chapter 14. Now I'm going to skip over to verse 19. Now, what's important to know is that before they got here into this town to preach, they were in Iconium, and from Antioch and Iconium, and they were preaching there. And the Jews, the people that and the Greeks that didn't agree with them, wanted to kill them, and they escaped and went to this other town. And when they were there and they started doing this, people started believing, but they thought they were gods, and so here we are, right? So this is where they're at. Verse 19. But Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, where they had been before, and having won over the crowds, the ones that were starting to believe them, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing him to be dead. I knew that. I knew that. I've read that before. But when the disciples stood around him, he got up and entered the city. Okay, I knew that, and I've always assumed they thought they killed him, but they really didn't, and they threw him out, right? And the other day it came to my mind, actually the revelation I'm getting now came to my mind the other day, and I said it out loud to somebody. And now I'm reading the word and it confirmed what I was thinking. So I'm going to read it again. But the Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and having won over the crowds, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing him to be dead. But while the disciples stood around him, he got up and entered the city. The next day, he went away with Barnabas to, I think it's pronounced Derbe. It's a city. So the next day after they stoned him to the point that they were certain he was dead. And let me tell you something. When they stone people there, they don't make a mistake. The people don't live through it. And keep in mind, these Jews came from a different town just to come kill them. There's no way that they didn't kill him. This man came back from the dead. I believe that the disciples that stood around him raised the dead the way Jesus commanded them to in the Great Commission. Because this man, if they had stoned him to the point of being almost dead and they just made a mistake, even if he had gotten up and walked into the city with somebody, there's no way he could have left the very next day and went away to a different city to preach the gospel. There's no way you could be stoned to almost death to the point that the people that traveled quite a distance just to come convince a whole crowd of people that were listening to you to kill you, and that they stoned you but didn't kill you enough. Even if they stoned him to the point of and they mistook, and they were supposing him to be dead, but maybe he really wasn't, because for whatever reason, there's no way without a radical healing or coming back from the dead, which I believe he was dead. But there's no way that without the Great Commission being done to him, because it's specific to say that while the disciples stood around him, he got up and entered the city. The next day he went away with Barnabas to Derbe. After they had preached the gospel to that city and had made many disciples, they returned to Lystra and Iconium and to Antioch, which is where the Jews came from originally, where they wanted to kill him, strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in the faith, and saying, "Through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God." When they had appointed... Okay, the kingdom of God is not where we go when we leave. It's what comes inside of you when you get saved here. Okay? So that's what they're talking about there. But straight up, he was martyred. He was killed. And instantly the disciples went around him and he was raised. I believe that. I thought about it the other day and said it, and now I'm reading it. And I wasn't even looking it out to read it. Like I've been in Acts this week, and them Jews came from a different town, came all the way over just to kill this man, and then threw him out of the city when they were done. And this man got up, walked back in the city, and then traveled to another city the next day to preach the gospel. You can't convince me any different, but you can try in the comments.